I'm Jason Connolly and welcome to the Career Success Podcast. In this thought-provoking series, we will dig deep to know what it takes to reach the top in your chosen industry. Every week we conduct interviews and lead the way in conversation, speaking to the biggest names in the world of business. What makes that person successful and what actually defines success to them. We'll gain valuable insights as we go through this journey, talking about their business success. We'll also talk about what lessons have been learned, find out how to overcome obstacles and challenges, and learn from the best on how to become a successful business leader and how to get your business to the top. We'll also cover what diversity in the workforce means. This podcast for me is all about showcasing what makes someone successful. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this week by Sarah Goulbourne. Sarah is an award-winning entrepreneur, Gunnercooke Solicitors co-founder, coach and mentor to professionals and board members. Gunnercooke was co-founded in 2010 and is now one of the UK's fastest growing law firms. It's been a really busy few years for Sarah. In 2019, the year after being named Law Firm of the Year at the Law Society Excellence Awards, Gunnercooke was also given the overall Business Culture Achievement Gold Award at the Business Culture Awards. The firm has also been shortlisted for 2 National Business Awards. Gunnercooke has also received an absolute raft of PR and has been in the media for their innovation and the way they work. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today.
It's a pleasure, Jason. Pleasure.
So, to anyone that doesn't know Gunnercooke or perhaps isn't in the legal industry, just give us an overview of Gunnercooke, because it is an unusual law firm in some senses.
Yes, okay. Well, Gunnercooke is actually a business. It's a business that happens to sell legal services. So for any of you business owners out there or business people, we very much set this up as a business. And so what our lawyers do is they come in and they share their fees with us. So they bring in their clients, they're very free to work with their clients how they wish, they agree pricing between them, so it's a very commercial arrangement. And then the lawyers share the fees with us and we help them with all the back office services that they need as lawyers. And that's how the model works. We've now got nearly 300 lawyers in the business across the UK. And we're about to go and open our first international office in Europe.
Congratulations. Where is that office?
That's going to be in Berlin, in Germany.
How exciting. So to anyone that isn't necessarily from the law, I think one of the things that's worth kind of really putting across is this isn't a usual law firm model. Usual law firm model might be an LLP, partners at the top who've got equity, and then everyone under there is employed. Everyone who comes into Gunnercooke is self-employed.
That's right. So what they're doing is running their own business, and that's the exciting bit. So as you join Gunnercooke, you leave behind just being a lawyer and you very much become a business person. So you're running your own little company, you're the director and shareholder of that, and you're responsible for your tax and your VAT. And if you take on staff, you're responsible for them too. But we really do work on supporting those lawyers become business people by a brilliant coaching program. And I qualified as an executive coach probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. I went to Henley, to the business school there. And we've now got a brilliant team of coaches that help our lawyers become fantastic business people.
We'll talk about that in a moment, because that's really interesting in itself. But lawyers are risk-averse people. You wouldn't associate a lawyer going out there and becoming a business owner necessarily. How do people tend to arrive at you and go on that journey and come to be in a place where they think about, actually, I want to go against, maybe the safety net of annual leave, having a holiday, having all the benefits that you'd associate with a salaried position? How do they get to that place and make that transition over to come into Gunnercooke?
I think originally when we set up 10 years ago, it was mainly senior lawyers that were attracted to this because they'd worked their way up the traditional law firm ladder. They'd got to be partner and they recognised that perhaps they still wanted some control and freedom over what they were doing. And And if you don't know a lot about traditional law firms, what there is in there is quite a rigid structure, not a lot of space for people to be free to run their practices how they wish, or work with clients how they wish, or even price with clients how they wish. So it gives lawyers, senior lawyers, a lot of freedom and control and autonomy on how they want to run their work life and their home life too. What's interesting in the last few years is that many more lawyers at a more junior stage in their career also want to join us, because I think people are recognising that work's always going to be there, but what you have to do in business now is find that balance between your work and your home life and all the other things you want to achieve. And we're all going to work and live so much longer now because we're all so much healthier, that people are looking for a different way of working.
I think that's right. And I think legal as an industry, obviously I work in the sector and I do legal recruitment is what I'm known for. But I think legal is a sector that is kind of behind on the times, and it's quite draconian compared to other industries. So, this might be quite a new concept out there to a lot of different industry sectors. But at the time you started Gunnercooke back in 2010, this was quite an innovative idea, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were seen as, we were described as a challenger law firm and disruptive in the legal sector. And to an extent, we're still seen as that today. But the whole world's changing. I mean, what's changed is technology has allowed us all to operate our businesses in different ways. And many of the people listening here will be used to running their businesses in the cloud, not having a server in their office anymore. And this is the way that the world is going. So adopting things like cloud technology at an early stage allowed our lawyers to work from anywhere in the world, and isn't often even aware that the lawyer's not in the UK. So we have lawyers that live in South Africa, in France, Spain, Italy, Israel, all practicing law with their clients, delivering great service, but from wherever they want.
So we've been obviously through this time recently with COVID, and I think we've all become, no one knew, well, a lot of people didn't even know what Zoom was before the pandemic started. But it sounds like you've been kind of adopting this technology and this way of communicating with people way before, we reached the pandemic. So has it been quite a seamless transition for you over the last few months?
I think, yeah, operationally it has. I mean, we had to ask our back office team, who are all relatively junior people at early stages in their career, to all work from home, obviously during lockdown, and that's tough for young people. Often you're in a house share or a flat share, you've got quite a small amount of space between you all, you might not have a garden, and I think those few months must have been, they are really shown to have been tough. But I suppose being aware of that and us putting in place lots more, meetings on Teams, lots of video calls, making sure people feel supported was relatively easy, because all our lawyers were definitely used to working from home already. And in fact, it's a prerequisite of joining Gunnercooke that you are set up with a home office. So that wasn't too difficult. But what I do think in this strange time we've had this year that's really important to realise is that you can't run your whole business just on Zoom calls and team calls. Where possible, you have to be able to bring people together in some way, and there has to be some human connection, because you do lose something over screens. You just do. You lose that sense of rapport and closeness, I think.
I'm as a person, I'm all about energy and how I kind of feel with people, and I find that when I'm over, whether it be the phone or on Zoom, I just don't get that same feeling that I get that I do when I'm sort of sat in a room opposite someone. I can see the white of their eyes. I think you're right. Something does get lost in that. Obviously, we spoke about Gunnercooke from the inside and what it's like to be a lawyer. The fact you're innovative, the fact it is a different working model. People are coming to you, but I'm a client from the outside looking in. What's different about Gunnercooke compared to any other law firm if I'm a client?
I think from a client perspective, what you get with the lawyer that you're dealing with is a senior business person, actually, who's prepared to listen and spend time with you in a way that you're not worried that it's on the clock. So there is never a need to worry from a client perspective that the clock's ticking and how much is this call going to cost me, or how much is this meeting. because the way our lawyers price themselves, they can give the clients lots of certainty. And I think that's huge. That's a huge change for clients, because one of the worries about buying services from a lawyer has always been, oh God, how much is this going to cost me? Whether it's your divorce or your house purchase or selling your business. And I think with Gunnercooke, the lawyers can have a very upfront, transparent conversation about pricing and take that worry away from the client. And I think that's hugely powerful. If you're an FD running a business, Jason, you want to know how much each expense is going to cost you in a year, and legal is one of those.
You do. You don't want to feel every time you pick up the phone to your lawyer that's it. That's another rack on the bill, especially when sometimes going through a legal process of any kind can be stressful. You want a lawyer that takes that away. One statistic I've got in front of me is 90% of your lawyers have worked in-house. And to people who don't necessarily know what that means, that's a lawyer who's actually worked in a company, either as a legal counsel, a general counsel. So that's quite an unusual statistic to find. A lot of in-house lawyers have come back to private practice, because sometimes it's a career-defining move when you make that move away. So that's quite an unusual statistic.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of our lawyers do is effectively act as a part-time in-house lawyer for their client, because of course in Gunnercooke their time is free for them to use, so they can go and say to a client, why don't I come into your team and work at your office one day a week? Why don't I come in a couple of days a month and spend time with the team doing some training with them? So the lawyer becomes part of the client's team, and that's very, very powerful. The client then feels that the lawyer really understands where their business is going and what they're doing and what challenges they're facing. And of course, from a lawyer's point of view, they're getting really close to that client and really understanding that client. So it's very powerful to be able to do that. And we do encourage people to do that all the time. You can do that on a day rate, you can do it on a monthly retainer. And for some businesses, they couldn't afford a lawyer all the time on the payroll. But having a lawyer part-time, in their business is very, very useful.
Especially if you're maybe a medium to large size business and you've got lots of projects ongoing. I think when people think of a lawyer, they always think of someone who's very straight-laced, someone that's going to, just advise them on risks and problems. But I think lawyers are changing. They're becoming more like business advisors, business coaches. That whole client-lawyer relationship is changing. Would you say so?
Definitely. I mean, what we talk about a lot in our business is being a trusted advisor. And it's about saying to somebody like you, so you're a CEO with a fast-growing, ambitious business. And it's about you trusting somebody like me to say, look, Sarah, I've got this problem. I know you're an employment lawyer, but my problem today is around my intellectual property or selling this part of the business, and trusting me to go away and find the right people to help you. So not knowing that I'm not going to pretend I can do it all, but you trust me to take it away and solve your problems. And it's that problem solving part of being a lawyer that I think clients like you are kind of reaching out for and saying, this is what I want. Being part of the team, as you say, as a business advisor.
I think to sort of go back in time then, your journey as a lawyer, what was that like? How did you start out? Because obviously we've talked about where you are now, which is absolutely incredible, your journey and where you currently are. But how did it all kind of start for you, your journey into law?
So, traditional story. I worked very hard at school and got some very good A levels, and knew that I wanted to do something that was more on the sort of art side rather than sort of medicine or science. So law was a very natural place for me to think about doing that. And I went to UCL and did a law degree there, and that's a great university with a great law faculty. And then I went to law school, which is the normal path to be a solicitor. And then you get, in the old days when I did it, you became an article clerk. Now you become a trainee, but in those days you were an article clerk. And I worked in the city.
Yourself sound like you're old, Sarah. You're not old at all in the old days.
Thank you, Jason. So I worked in the city in a franchising firm, which was really interesting because it awakened my love for commercial law.
What's a franchising firm? I've never come across.
Yeah, so it specialised. It had some really great big brands like Prenuptua, the wedding dresses, and Pizzaland and Spudgy. Like, it had some great franchise clients, and they were acting for franchisors and franchisees. So it was very, very commercial. And I absolutely loved it. And I knew then that I always would be a corporate commercial lawyer, you know, from the first sort of couple of months of being in an office. And then I built my career as an in-house lawyer. So I became a general counsel. I had 2 children on the way. So I've got 2 boys. They're now 26 and 28. And one of them is a lawyer. And yeah, I mean, being in-house is being part of a business. I loved it. I loved the fact that I was working with the marketing team, the PR team, the finance team. You really get to know your client. You've got one dedicated client. You can give all your time and energy to helping them. It's a very rewarding career now, and it's extremely popular in law now to want to go in-house.
I think a lot of clients as well are wanting in-house lawyers. It's an easy way to mitigate a lot of legal costs.
Yeah.
And they want someone on the inside. We've noticed that legal counsels and general counsels, there's a real demand for them now. And it seems that any company that has a relatively certain size is going down that direction. Was that quite a career-defining moment for you when you went in-house then? Because that seems like that's how this all kind of manifested and started.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I went in as a newly qualified solicitor, so I was very young to do it, but there is a real career path in-house. So you move around between sectors. So I've worked in the banking sector, I've worked in the media sector, I've worked in the leisure sector, but all commercial businesses have commercial needs. So what's interesting is you get to experience lots of different businesses as an in-house lawyer, and that gives you a lot of variety. And then when I was a certain age, I went back to business school and I did an MBA, and that's where a lot of the ideas from Gunnercooke came. And I could say to your audience, you know, if anybody's ever thinking about should they do an MBA, I highly recommend it. It was just so interesting for me. I'd come from a sort of legal background, quite a narrow sort of legal training, and to be with all these really creative, bright people from so many different industries, it was absolutely amazing. I loved it, and it gave me a lot of the ideas for Gunnaker.
What did the MBA necessarily teach you? Was it more about being in the room of entrepreneurs, or was it more about how to grow a business? Because I've never done one myself.
It was the entrepreneur side. So I had only ever worked in large corporates, PLCs and listed companies.
Yeah.
I did a module around entrepreneurs, and they actually brought some entrepreneurs in. They brought in people who had started up businesses from nothing. What was interesting is it showed you how to effectively think about scaling up a business. So when you get an idea for a business, that's great. And you sort of try it out and you test it. And that's what I did. And that's what you're doing, Jason, in your business. It's the scalability. Why does one business grow and thrive and go on to great things, and another business doing exactly the same thing doesn't get anywhere?
That's a really good question.
And it's because often the entrepreneurs, the founders, don't think big. They don't think about scale. They don't think about growth. And you have to put those points down in the ground from a very early stage of your business if you do want to grow and scale it. And my business partner and I, Daryl Cook and I, we always knew we wanted to grow Gunnercooke. We always knew we wanted to take it international. We knew it would take, a long time to achieve that, but it was being really clear from day one where we wanted to be. And I do think there's this thing about, I don't know if you've heard about growth mindset. It's a great book by Carol Dweck. And
we had someone mention it a few episodes ago, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. But thinking big, thinking outside the box, always pushing yourself. I mean, these are the sort of skills you need to keep pushing your business forward, as you have done, very successfully in your business.
Because I've never myself, and I've mentioned this in some other episodes, I never did A-levels, I never went to university. I think I learned a lot from the different businesses I was in. But I spent some of my time at Virgin Atlantic, some in the police, And I do agree with what you're saying. I think growth mindset is really important. I'm someone that I think is always thinking about the massive picture down the line, where I want to be in 5 years' time, where I want to be in 3 years' time, where I even want to be in 10 years' time. But I think sometimes what I sometimes miss is, and I've recently had a personality profile done about me, and there's a lot in the recruitment world now about people getting psychometric profiles. I've realised that I'm a big picture person, but what I'm not is a detail person. And I think that's been quite interesting in itself. Do you do psychometric testing where you are? Is that something that you've adopted?
Yes, we do. So we do it for all our senior management, and actually we ask our lawyers to not do it as part of recruiting them, but do it to coach them, to help them, to make them more aware that they're becoming a business person. So the skills they needed to be a great lawyer, yeah, they're still there, and that's important. But actually you need a whole different skill set to manage running a business. And like you say, if you recognize that you're a big picture person, what you really need to recognize is that the next person you recruit has to be that detail person that can fill that gap for you. So the successful business owners are the ones that you always recruit people better than yourself. I mean, we've always done that. If you can find somebody who's better at marketing than you, don't be intimidated by that. Don't be defensive. Bring them in and let them be great at marketing in your business.
I'm all about that. I think you want to surround yourself in a room of people that are better than you. You're going to learn from that. I don't want to focus on a negative, but you've said that it's that growth mindset. That's what makes a business successful. What is it that these other businesses are focusing on that isn't allowing them to grow? Is it quite simply they're not focusing on growth? No,
I don't believe that, because there are many models like ours now popping up in the legal sector, but they're not growing. They're not growing at the pace we are. And I think the massive differentiator, and again, I can apply it to your business because you are so different, you guys, from many of the traditional legal recruiters, is it's about culture. And we've worked really, really hard to define our culture in our organization and the way we behave with each other and the values we have. And I think that's what people are buying into. They're not buying into, oh, you're a law firm and you can give me a fee share model. It's not that. It's what Gunnercooke's about. It's about things like collegiality and collaboration. And those are the things that differentiate you in a sort of crowded market.
I agree. There's recruitment agencies are 10 a penny, and there's lots of. We've recently just started a new business attracting recruitment consultants who want to, who maybe have got bags of potential but haven't yet realised it in a traditional working environment. And I think that you could copy a lot of things in business, but you can't copy a culture. And it's one of those things that if you've got not a great culture, it's also very hard to change. It's something that you've got to work on and grow, and it's ever evolving. So what challenges have you faced then over the years since you've started this, and how do you get through those?
I mean, I'm a big fan of saying that you're not always going to know the answers, and at times you are going to get stuck in business. And I think recognizing that you're not invincible, and there's a lot written about this now, about true leaders being prepared to be vulnerable and being prepared to show their teams when they're finding it tough or difficult. I think that's really, really important. But more than that, recognizing that you might need help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that you recognize that you need some support in a particular area, and to help your business grow, you're going to need to get it. And I think that's where I found coaching. So I find coaching so powerful as a management tool, because you're there getting help and support. So I've used an executive coach numerous times during my time growing Gunnercooke, where I've reached out to somebody and said, look, I need some help with this. And it helps you often move from being stuck, whether it's a problem you've got or a difficult decision that you're finding it hard to make. Coaching can be a really powerful tool, because by the coach listening and asking the right questions, you get to the answer yourself. And that's very powerful, because you believe in it more, because you've actually found the answer yourself. You haven't been told the answer by somebody else.
There's a lot of career coaches out there. They seem to be 10 a penny. How, if you're a business owner and you want to go out there and find someone, how do you find a coach that's right for you, or how do you find one that is any good? How do you know that you're finding someone that's credible?
I'll be honest, it's like with anything in professional services, I actually believe in personal recommendation and referral. I
Right.
think it's much, much stronger to go out into your network and ask somebody, do you know the right coach? And also, when you are thinking about engaging a coach, I actually think you should talk to at least 3, because although all the coaches you might find are very well qualified, it will be about the personal rapport between you and a coach. And if you don't get on and you don't click, then you're not going to get the most out of a coaching assignment.
What's been kind of the main things that you've kind of experienced or learned, or is there, since you've been coaching, because it's quite, I guess there's a lot to it, and I guess I assume that you're with people who are coaching people who are big board members and stuff like that. Is there anything that's been particularly that you've kind of learned since you've been doing this?
I think as a coach, you have to be clear what outcomes your coachee is expecting out of an assignment, because you're not there, waving some magic wand to get rid of whatever the issue is. Or at the end of the day, you've got to be very, very clear what that client, what that person wants out of the assignment. And I think you've got to keep referencing back to it. So, for example, if somebody was engaging me for, say, 6 sessions as a coach over, say, six months, I'd be very clear to review after halfway through the program. How is this going for you? Are the outcomes you wanted still the same? Business changes fast often. Is this still what the person needs or wants? So I think it's about clear communication more than anything.
So to ask you a question about business in general, if someone was just starting up a business, perhaps they're just thinking, right, I want to go out alone now and try myself. What advice would you give to someone starting a business up from the early days?
Absolutely do a very clear business plan. No question, you need a plan. You are not going to get anywhere without some sort of plan. And you can call it a strategy plan, you can call it an action plan. I don't actually think it matters what you call it, but to have a really clear idea on your values from day one, a really clear idea on your focus, what is your passion? And then to be clear about, are you going to have a 5-year target? Are you going to have a 10-year target? What is your long-term vision? What is it you want to achieve for you and that business? And then you can, once you've defined all those, what I call really big picture things, then you can think about your marketing strategy. You can think about who your target market is and how you're going to deliver something different. But if you don't get those fundamental big picture questions and points answered at the start, you're just not going to be clear on your decision making when you need to make decisions, because they've all got to reference back to that. Is this in line with my values? Is this in line with my core focus? Is this in line with where I want to be in 5 years' time? Because if they're not, then you don't want to go with whatever the decision is that you're being asked to make.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really important. And I think also cash flow is something that people need to take into account, especially in those early days of having a business. To ask advice as well. So obviously we have a lot of lawyers, law graduates, paralegals, and people who listen to this channel. You're really and highly successful in what you do. I can't even keep track of where you're ranked in the Legal 500 now. Where are you?
Oh, we're in there.
Right, okay. I can't keep track of all the awards and rankings that you've got.
No, we're in there, and it's very important to us that we keep recruiting, out of that quality pool of the sort of top 100 law firms in the UK, because that's how basically our lawyers are comfortable dealing with each other and then referring clients to each other. So quality is just as important to us as quantity.
Okay, I guess 2 last things I'd like to ask you. So we've got a lawyer listening into this now that's been working in private practice that, hasn't even ever thought about this entering into their mind, going and out into the, what might be the big scary world and being fully responsible for their practice. What would you say to that person listening now?
I would say, think about what you want out of your future career in life, because if you're not able to be in control of that, I think as a very intelligent, bright professional, that can be very, very frustrating. And money, being tracked by, being paid a certain salary, isn't always going to lead you to be feeling fulfilled and worthwhile. And I think it takes somebody to be brave. It takes somebody to be prepared to take a risk. But if you talk to any of our Gunnercooke lawyers, most of them would say, I'll never look back, I'll never go back. And many of them say, I wish I'd done it 10 years earlier. But the fact was, we weren't there 10 years ago, but we're there now. And this type of law firm is here to stay.
Now, just to pull you up on what you just said, they're trapped. That's an interesting term to use, trapped by your salary.
Well, yeah, because, you know...
What happens when you're freed?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you can be paid a lot of money, but the pressure that comes with that is intense. So, and it's like any job, you know, if a lawyer's paid £100,000, they'll be expected to bill at least 3.5 times that, you know, 350,000. Now, you know, to be doing that day in, day out, year in, year out, will put people under pressure. But yeah, they're getting very well paid. But you don't do a job. I mean, you'll know this from your recruitment business, Jason. People don't just work just for money. That money is one thing on the list, but they want to feel, you know, fulfilled. They want to feel that they're being listened to. They want to feel that their employer values them. And so it can't just be about a transaction. And that's what we're trying to offer people as an alternative in Gunnercooke. Really.
Money is actually, we ran some statistics on this and crunched some data a little while ago. Money actually came as reason number 5 for people looking to leave. And I think, you know, we speak to a lot of different law firms. A lot of law firms who aren't looking at the right things find this absolutely surprising, but it's not just about the money. It's, you know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was progression, feeling valued, like you said, or also feeling that they enjoy where they work. I think the working model's changing, it's evolving. People want collaboration. They want a different relationship with their employer. They want one of flexibility, and I think that's just going to continue to evolve. And you being such an early adopter into this, you're kind of way ahead of the sphere of what's happening with a lot of law firms. I think a lot of people have only just woken up to this necessarily off the back of COVID.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, we're never going back, Jason. As an economy in the UK, you know, I think we've fundamentally changed the way that people are going to live and work. I really do. And I think the idea that people want to go back 5 days a week into an office week in, week out is no longer going to be an option. I think people will be expecting now to be offered a different way of flexible working.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just to ask, a trainee lawyer and a paralegal, we were just about to talk about it, but what advice would you give to someone just thinking about starting a career in law and thinking, you know, I want to go down this path? It's extremely competitive. It's very hard to get a training contract in a firm. What would you say to these people?
Start as early as you can to think about how you can be seen to be different. So whether it's that you're interested in a particular sector, like the gaming sector or the fashion sector or retail sector, find something that you can become very knowledgeable about as early as possible, because that will show that you're different. And I think having confidence to speak up with ideas, I mean, they might be wrong, but it doesn't matter. It shows that you're thinking, and it shows that you're questioning, and it shows that you're open. So I think legal training is getting better, that people are recognizing that you can't just be a technically good lawyer anymore. You're not going to make it on just being a technically good lawyer. You've got to have the other personality traits around you of good communication, being tenacious, being resilient. You can't just sit there and just be a technically good lawyer. That's not going to be enough anymore.
It's not. You need to be someone that's dynamic, and you need to be, I think the word we hear all the time, the kind of golden phrase is business develop. You've got to be someone that can build relationships and someone that, you know, ultimately can market yourself. And that
means, you know, for a young lawyer, you've got to read the papers, you've got to read the Times and the FT, you've got to read the Economist.
Got to know the market around you, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to understand your client's business and where it sits in its sector. You know, if I was going to see a new client, the first thing I do is look on their website, look at their PR announcements, look at their latest report and accounts, and see what they're saying about their business. I don't think lots of young lawyers even think like that, and they should, because they'll be so much more knowledgeable when they get into the client meeting.
Well, I know that from business, even from recruitment. I think that's why we're so ahead of the curve. I'm just naturally curious when it comes to the world around me. And I think sometimes I spend too much time reading the news, but can you have too much knowledge? I guess that's the question. So asking what's next for you and what's next for Gunnercooke. You mentioned that you've got this office opening up in Europe. What does the next few years look like for you, Sarah?
Well, I've got so many roles. I mean, obviously, I'm on the board of Gunnercooke, and I love that strategic role that I play. I love talking to lawyers, as you know. So I've got this role around recruitment in Gunnercooke and its growth. So I'm loving that. And coaching the lawyers that are with us, that's another piece for me. New areas for me are also getting into the charitable sector and helping, using some of my time to help charities. So Gunnercooke set up a foundation where we offer peer-to-peer support to CEOs of small charities. So I look after seven charities. And I've also enrolled to be a mentor for a young person at school. It's called Career Ready, and Gunnercooke are supporting that charity. So, bringing on young people and giving them chances and opportunities to see what a career in law is like is something that I'm going to really develop over the next few years.
Absolutely fabulous. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on this episode today. Anyone who'd like more information about Sarah or Gunnercooke, that can be found at gunnercooke.com. Thanks for joining me this week. It's been great to talk to you, Sarah, and I wish you well in all your endeavours moving forwards.
Been a pleasure, Jason. Thank you very much indeed.